episode 2 of On the Cusp. And today I've got my co-host Matt Snyder back with me, and we've got Julie Milam, been with me for 7 years at EAP, and we're going to talk a little bit about the business plan, the lean canvas, or just do it. All right? What do you think, gang? Go, Matt.
Y'all know I think just do it. I think the business plans of old, I will say this, I think the time you put into that, I've seen more people looking at starting a business stop starting a business because of the business plan project than actually do the business plan and then go be super successful. If you can get the ball rolling and get some results, obviously you have a business plan. Everyone has to have some form of business plan in their brain at least. You have to know how your business is going to operate. Right. I'm going to take on clients. I'm going to charge this. I'm going to bill like this. That's a basic business plan.
Okay, got it.
So
Julie?
I would argue...
But Julie, you come from a different perspective. One, you're an analyst in EAP, okay? And you're a business owner. What are your thoughts?
That's right. I mean, I think for some people, you know, they can handle all of the things rolling around in their head and they can execute on that. Some people need to actually organize it and get it written down. Now, the days of the 35, 60-page glossy business plan, I think those are probably
gone.
That's
what I'm against, probably the most.
Yeah, because that's just an exercise in, you know, can you write a plan?
Well, let's face it. Of the 1,400 ideas that we've seen, okay, and when anytime somebody walked in with a 75-page glossy print business plan, I've never read the whole thing. I flip to the financials, I go straight to that, and I start digging into it right there. How do you make money?
The business plan that would get you a good grade in a business class in college would not necessarily get your deal done in the real world.
I agree, because the very day that you finish writing that, it's extinct. It's out of date in your because
10
in
things
business
you thought were going to happen in that business plan have happened differently.
Changing. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But gang, let's stop and think about this for a second. If you're going to raise capital, that banker, and I hope a banker out there challenges us on this. If they do, come on. Okay, we'll have you sit right here and we'll do it again.
I want that banker to sit there and tell me he reads every word in that business plan.
Well,
not going to happen.
Not going to happen. He's not. But when is the time that you got to have a business plan? When is it?
I think it's definitely when you're raising a substantial amount of capital, whether it be banking it or friends and family round or whatever. Maybe not friends and family, but angel investor, VC round. You know, if you're at the point you're trying to raise $10 million in capital, you better have some really strong projected financials or some really awesome historicals.
Right.
Solid financial projections is what all the people I kind of reached out knowing we were going to talk about this to that own businesses, they all lean towards we had very solid financial projections was the basis of their planning. And I think that's what a banker wants to see, an investor wants to see, and probably a lot of other people, real estate people and different people.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. When do you update it? How do you update it? What about you, Julie?
So I'm a big advocate for the lean canvas. This is kind of it's a simplified version of the business plan. It's got all of the different sections of a business plan, but you can literally do it on one page. And it should be a 20-minute exercise where you literally are writing down bullet points. It helps somebody focus and really organize all those things that are swirling around in their brain. And you can update it monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever works for you if something is changing or maybe not working with your business.
What about you, Matt? What do you do?
I do have plans, especially around events, but they stay as a Word document on a screen, and it changes every time I have a meeting, every time I move. It's scratch outs, deletes, new things. A plan of action that is always evolving is probably the key to a successful event.
Well, that's an interesting skill that somebody's got to have. Whether you're a startup entrepreneur, okay, or an existing business owner, how do you track the changes, Julie?
Wow. So I think that the financials, you actually update your projections based on what you know. Did you win that contract? Are you having that event?
Right.
Did something change with one of your vendors? So when those major milestones or those major changes that
Does that
happen
mean
in the
you go
business-
back and rerun the financials right there the minute that?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you do that yourself?
I mean, if you have that skill set, then yes. If you don't have that skill set and you have a finance person on your team,
Right.
which I think for a lot of people is a very important person on the team that you must have, yes, absolutely. Somebody within the organization
Matt,
needs to
do you
rerun
do that? Do you constantly go back?
I constantly go back to my plan, definitely in my mind and thoughts and planning. I don't know that I always write it down. And I was going to say, one of the biggest things that would be my argument against business plans is the businesses that open or don't do it right off the bat and say, I'm going to write that business plan down, next year or in a few months or after I learn this. They never write it.
So I would almost argue that people aren't doing the business plan, especially once you get into operations. Who has time for that?
You're doing your business,
That's
yeah.
right.
You're running the
But
business.
if you have some accounting software, there's a lot of them out there. They have budgets in there. So I think that's how people make the change and do the projections and are constantly updating things. They're saying, what was my budget to actual? How do I actually
They're
execute
looking
that?
at the financials to change their plan more
That's
than
right.
looking at a plan to change their financials. I
Absolutely.
think what
Yeah.
we're saying is we believe in tracking your financials, both projected and real, constantly to shape the strategies of your business.
Yeah, but one of the key components of a business plan is always the milestones. When do I achieve success? And okay, it's easy to say, hey, money equals
Checks
success.
are milestones.
Yeah, miles
Dave.
are-
When that check goes into the personal bank account, milestone.
Yeah, but for a lot of companies, they really struggle with that. How do I know I'm ready to grow? Because they don't go in and go through the process of literally lining out when I have X reoccurring revenue at this margin, I know I'm ready to go to the next level.
So that goes back to the lean canvas. One of the pieces of the lean canvas, one of the sections is what are the metrics that I'm going to actually measure success at? Because a lot of people go into business and they think that the only measure of success for them is the bottom line. And maybe that works for them. But I think for a lot of other companies,
Yeah.
it might be what is the cost to acquire an additional customer? And laying out what those measures of success are at the forefront to say, how do I know I'm actually successful beyond just the bottom line?
Right.
Yes, what you would write down on a business plan as your goal, the why still matters, whether you write it down or not. The why behind doing a lot of events that I've done has not been to make money. It's been to open the idea to having a festival in Betty, Virginia Park, to create more culture in Shreveport. Well, so a financial would not do any real good as long as you're not going out of business, losing money.
I would even go a step further and to say, a lot of people will say, well, my measure of success is the number of customers that I have.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Or the number of widgets that I sell. That's fine and great. But if you're not really measuring what's the profit margin for each one of those widgets? If it costs you $100 to manufacture it and you can only sell it for $90, that's not really a measure of success,
Right.
even if
Yeah.
you sell 10 million of them.
Right.
So
I
I
think
think-
that's the key, though. I think a lot of guys like me that are going to go through those sections, that's what they're going to look for. How well have you thought out what it is you're going to do, and what did you use to price it? Okay? And if you don't have those critical elements in there after you've read the financials, because they're going to go from financials to this piece, okay, you're going to struggle. And they're trying to figure out where the hard points are going to be, right? Because nobody wants to go into business, hit that first roadblock, right? And then go, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this. And, right? And that's where a lot of people are going to push. Oh, you got to have a complete business plan. And I'm going to tell you.
I'm going to tell you when they hit that point you're talking about where they're stuck, the place they're not going to in that moment is their business plan. They're going to their allies, to the people they trust in business. They're going to their business group. They're going back to getting on the ground and getting their elbows dirty. They're going to get in and fix their business. I've never been in a meeting with any client I've ever had where we're looking at a struggle and them go, let me whip out my business plan. Never once.
Really?
That has never happened.
Have you ever just written them down, where the pain points are, just sat down and just written them down?
I think a good entrepreneur is a good solver of problems. So in a lot of business, and I'm thinking about my like retail guys, my guys that are out selling stuff in a store, they're fixing the problem. They're coming up with the 1, 2, 3 to how they're going to fix. First, I'm going to jump in there. That lady just quit. I'm going to run that cash register. Step 1. And because I got to keep this money coming in. Step 2, I need to put an ad out that we're hiring. Step 3, I need to hire a good person and stop having to work this cash register. That's how the entrepreneurs I work with basically think.
So I think, though, you made a good point, because you said a successful entrepreneur is a fixer. They're solving problems.
Right.
Some entrepreneurs, though, may not have that skill set or may not understand the business well enough to identify what the problem is. That's why I'm sticking to my guns on the lean canvas, because it makes you go through every single aspect of it. And if there's an area on that lean canvas you go, that's what's not working, then I think that they
solve the problems, though, you can write it down all day.
Well, where do you go once you figured out what the problem is?
That lean canvas better be written by somebody that knows how to solve problems.
Fair enough.
Because if they wrote it but they don't know how to solve problems, that's not.
But Julie, where do you go? Where do you go to solve the problems?
So I'm always I'm an analyst, a financial analyst at heart. So I'm always gonna go to the numbers and try to figure out where's that point that it's not working. Is it the cost of materials? Is it, I'm gonna try to figure it out through the financials, because I think they always will tell the story.
Right.
But I'm also, if I identify a problem, I'm going to go to my fellow business entrepreneur or fellow business owners, and I'm going to say, hey, man, how did you fix this problem?
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, is that not the power of the network?
That is the power, absolutely, and that's where I wanted to go, the network. Do you have that network?
That's probably the biggest thing that I bring to my clients.
Look, Shreveport's on the cusp of something really big, okay? I feel it, it's going to happen, okay? Is our network in place right now that when
I go from client to client, when a problem comes up, I'm able to say, oh, I was just talking to Jim that does this, and he was having that problem, and this is what he did. And I'm able to share a lot of those stories, and it widens people's network.
Where is that forum for everybody to share those?
There's a lot of forums. I mean, there's business groups, there's SBAs, there's Rotary groups. I think there's a lot of business groups.
It's just you got to be part of it.
You got to be part of it, and you got to be proactive. There's a lot of people that go to those groups and eat their breakfast and go home.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really beneficial. But if you know you're on a mission to get better at running your business, talking to other business owners, however you have to do that, is valuable. I know my group in the early years, how we did it was we kind of just got on a routine that every day after dropping our kids at school, we'd stop in to get a coffee at Rhino. Well, the front counter at Rhino ended up being just entrepreneur central. And every morning you'd be like, oh, hey, Boz. Oh, hey, Grant.
Right.
Hey, have y'all ran into this? I'm dealing with this. And then you'd solve it. A lot of the events and collaborations came from that counter.
Yeah, and I think that you'll find that, some people say, well, I don't know. I mean, they're in my same industry and they're not really going to want to help me. I disagree. I think that the entrepreneurial spirit is
absolutely,
they're
Julie.
all going to pitch in and help you solve the problem.
You want to be around people that are in the same kind of fight that you're in. It's way more fun to be with other people that think kind of like you and that are dealing with the same situations than it is being an entrepreneur and going to have a conversation with a CPA.
Right, very much so. Even though I do love my CPA and she does a great job. Okay, I'm not going to
I bet she has an awesome business plan.
Well, you know what I tell everybody? You know what? I'm not going to say any more than that because I'll bet she does. Okay? I think that's a very important point that you guys are talking about is having that network and having the people to go to. Because I'm going to tell you, my CPA knows where my daughters go to school, okay? And she also knows, Jamie and I and what we do, in our side hustle and everything. She knows us very well. You must have that person to go to, okay? I don't know anybody in business that, I always say, I hope your banker knows you and where your children go to school, and your CPA does the same thing. You got to have those two people. Now let's jump to another topic in business. When you're the entrepreneur, you've got your business plan, you're working your lean canvas. How comfortable are you in dealing with the unknown? Let me tell you, I think the entrepreneurs that do well, okay, I wish you knew 100% of everything, but you don't, okay? How comfortable are you with that 20, 30% that you don't know?
So I am a worst case scenario planner, okay? I'm the one that in my financial model or projections or when I'm doing my budget to actual, I'm probably going to do 2 or 3 different scenarios. And I'm always going to do what is that worst case scenario. And I'm probably going to take it a little too far because I would rather see what that looks like and prepare for that than to be overly optimistic and not have a plan. So I'm one of those that in my projections, I'm going to project that, sales are going to drop 10%. And do we have enough to cover everything in that situation? Am I going to project that material costs are going to go up by 50%, which is a reality for a lot of people
Yeah, for
these
a lot
days.
of people right now, it's hard. What about you, man?
So with dealing with the unknown, at the end of the day, business is just like any sport. At the end of the day, you have to have some level of skill. Like, I can coach you. I can come to Julie and she can analyze my business all day. She can give me all the things to do. But at some level, I have to be able to do it. I have to be able to pivot when things happen. I can't pick up the phone and call Julie every time something changes in business. Everybody knows that runs any kind of local business. Everything's constantly changing.
So, but how do you deal with the unknown? Like, how do you deal with that?
You try to predict your risks, right? You try to know. I like to look at it as an event because events have lots of changes, way more than a normal business probably, because you're creating this thing from scratch. It only exists one day. You don't have time to work out every
the weather. Okay,
yeah, there's lots of unknowns. You kind of build over time how I'm going to handle each of these problems, but then you're presented with a word problem like you would be in school.
And let me wrap it up.
Well,
Okay.
one more point on that. I think too, over
not gonna let
time,
me wrap
over time, as you're in business,
You get
the
better.
unknowns become less, right?
Right,
Because you
absolutely.
have that experience.
I've done that before.
Yes.
I know what
That's
to
right.
do. If it
You're
rains,
used to dealing.
yeah.
Let's wrap it up. You're used to dealing with the unknown. You know there's risk. You plan for the risk. You do the best job you can to mitigate the risk. Okay, but that does not stop you from doing it, and that's what I wanted to get to.
And
right?
just like in golf, where it's important to miss where it's okay to miss, you learn that in business. There are spots you cannot miss into. I cannot miss left into that water.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't hit the perfect shot and I miss over here, I still make money. That's
Yep.
a business skill.
Well, I think we all agree you don't have to have a 75-page glossy document, but you got to have something, and we're always going to know the financials.
You got to
right?
know your financials.
Definitely. All right. Thank y'all. And if somebody out there, that looked at the podcast and there's more you want to hear or a topic that you want to see here on the show, reach out to us, info@eapla.com.